Hey Wonjun, how's it going?
Good.
Good. How was your day yesterday?
I see movies with my friends.
Oh, nice.
Hey,
Nice.
Wonjun.
How's it going?
Good.
Good. How was your day yesterday?
Friends.
Oh, nice.
Hey,
Nice.
Wonjun.
Okay. Sorry about a bit of audio loop. Let's wait for a few more people and then we'll jump into it. I've been going over your project so many times. I pretty much just memorized what all of them are about in this class. I like the diversity. It's good. It's a good selection of very serious topics. Hi, how's it going? Good to see you all. Seyon, how was your day yesterday?
It was a very sleepy day.
I relate to that so much. I think I'm gonna have a sleepy day today. It was supposed to be sunny. It's cloudy right now. And I think I see a bit of sun actually. All right. Let's wait for just a few more folks and then I'll feel ready to get started. All right. It's gonna be a bit different today because we're not gonna cover glossary and we're gonna be spending a lot of time in breakouts. And we're going to have two polls. So it's kind of very full, very packed class ahead. You must have noticed over time, the amount of time you're spending with me in the main room is less and less every day. And you're spending a lot more time in breakouts. We are 2 minutes into start time, and I do want to get started. So you might have remembered a joke I made earlier, maybe last week, about how your kind of notation ends up being, where you think it's gonna be final doc, but it's no, it's final, 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 version 2 submitted, final. And then there's also bracket and a one, and it keeps going on and on and on. And that's how it's meant to be. That's the beauty of it. Going back to algorithmic thinking, this is what iteration and steps were all about, is you get through all of these steps, all of these collaboratories, and today is heavily, heavily, and entirely focused on your final presentations, the actual presentation itself, saying it out loud with your team and recording it. Takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of confidence. And it's awkward the first time you do it if you've never recorded anything before. I remember the first time I had a video recording to submit to a professor. I had to do a 1 minute recording and I had to do it 20 times because I kept messing up in the first like 10 seconds and I kept making the same mistake because I was just so, I couldn't get over the anxiety of it. And I think you all will have it a bit easier because you have other people around you to kind of give you that encouragement, give you that confidence and support to let you know that you're doing all right. We're going to be focusing a lot on presentation, on improving the work you've done so far about your presentation, really refining it, and then actually just sitting down and working as if you're doing a collaboratory during your second breakout. So we have enough people right now, and I feel comfortable enough to get started in class. So today we're going to be covering critical thinking, expression, and collaboration. So for just a quick recap, Seo-hyun, could you please read out the description for critical thinking? It's the second one.
Applies logical reasoning and evaluation to access information and arguments effectively.
Fantastic. This has all to do with looking at an argument, thinking about assumptions. There's, I think, two projects in this class. One's on leakage of data, and one is about social media misinformation. And both of these are kind of very heavy on the ethics, on the privacy part of things. And that's where a lot of my feedback has been focused, where I'm asking you to question the assumptions. Why is privacy actually important? Instead of jumping headfirst into defending privacy, tell me why somebody should care about privacy. Critical thinking is very important along those lines. Let's see, expression. This is probably the star of today's class. So, Hyunmin, could you please read out the description for expression?
Effectively conveying ideas, emotions, or information through verbal, written, and visual communication mediums to connect with and influence others.
All right. So you might remember the very first day when we were going over learning targets, I was talking about how each of these sentences is telling you to do a lot in just one sentence. Seon, can you kind of break down this sentence, this description of expression? Tell me all of the different things it's asking you to do.
Firstly, is describing what should we convey, which are ideas, emotions, and information. And secondly, it tells um, how we should convey these things. And this can be done through verbal, written, and visual communication mediums. And lastly, there is why we need to do this, which is to connect with and influence others.
Fantastic. This is really a supercharged learning target, right? It's like you mentioned, it's telling you three things. What are we doing? How are we doing it? Which is through verbal, written, and visual communication. So this means things like graphs and pictures. For those of you who got some feedback on the presentation in office hours yesterday, my feedback was about the presentation, make it your own, right? Like completely destroy the template, change all the colors, add in pictures, switch up the order, make sure all of the necessary things are there, but the actual presentation, the slides, they should be entirely your creation. And that's what this is talking about, the written and visual communication. We're going to spend a lot of time on the verbal communication aspect as well. And collaboration, I think we've focused quite heavily on in previous sessions. Let me read it out really quickly, is to foster teamwork to address real world challenges effectively. This is what you've all been doing. All four projects in this class have to do with something that affects real people. So just to cover, because I've been spending so much time just absorbing this information. One of the groups is focusing on leakage of personal data. One of the groups is focusing on social media misinformation. One of the groups is focusing on educational inequality in high schools. And one of the groups is focusing on mental health and figuring out creative ways to figure out mental health. And all of these projects have different strengths, and there's a lot of gaps that need to be covered before the final submission and before the final presentation. So let's get to figuring out how we're going to identify those gaps. And I think one of the best ways to ask that question or figure it out, right, is this word that I want to share with you today. Since we're not doing glossary today, I figured I might as well share a word of my own. And I wanted to do a word that's not in English. This is a foreign language word, raison d'etre. I love this word. I use it all the time. I use it in personal context when people are struggling to figure out what do they want to do. It has to do with that question I was asking you earlier in the week about why are you here? Why are you in university? What do you want to get out of it? This applies to your assignments as well. Your problem, your solution. What is the reason for it existing? What is the raison d'etre? If you can answer that, you're going to be able to answer all of the other questions that are going to be thrown your way today. So let me type this out in chat, just because I want you guys to have a reference. I really think this encapsulates a lot about purpose. Going back to those four questions, purpose, people, process, and pride. This has to do with purpose. Okay. I swear I'm gonna stop yapping real soon. Let's get to what you're going to be graded on. What are you assessed on? So I want a bit of a self-reflection kind of moment here, um, where let's see. For just as a real quick check, just so we know what we're all submitting at the very end, by the very end. Um, Cheson, could you tell me what your final deliverables are? Like all of the things you need to submit. You know there's a recording. What else is there?
A final report and PPT. So
Yes, exactly. The presentation itself. Uh, I want to spend just a few minutes just on the technicalities to make sure we know how to record on Google Meets. This was part of your pre-class readings. It gives you very clear instructions on how you're supposed to be doing these recordings. But real quick, can hmm, Minwoo, do you remember just the steps for how do you do a Google Meets recording? It's very straightforward.
Oh, I forgot that.
Don't worry about it. That's why I brought up this question. So let me pull up the instructions for how you're supposed to do it. Okay. Looks like we are in business. There. So the step-by-step guide is here. I'm gonna let you read this part of it yourself. Um, The important thing here is once all members have joined, the host clicks the activities icon on the bottom right corner of the screen. So if you're familiar with Google Meets, and even if you're not, I'm sure you've been in at least one Google Meet meeting. On the bottom right is the activities button, and whoever the host of the meeting is needs to just start recording. One thing to remember is that if you make a mistake, keep recording and just pretend as if it didn't happen, because then you can edit and you can chop it up and cut pieces so that let's say you're doing a recording and 4.5 minutes done, perfect, 30 seconds left and something happens. You don't want to re-record the entire thing from scratch. So keep the recording going, don't stop it, and then you can edit it later. This part is really important. Make sure everyone is just aware of how to do this recording. The instructions are very straightforward. Okay. Let's get to these assignment rubrics and think about them for a second. In terms of ethical considerations, Sangwoo, based on what you know about me, based on all the feedback your team has gotten, can you tell the class some of the things I look for when it comes to ethical considerations to get a good score on it?
I think Professor weighs on equality is very important thing because it is really important to stakeholders into small pieces, decompose and divide into people categorized by young and old or rich and poor. So it's considering equality is I think professor is very important. Yes.
I like this. I like how you can tell a lot about me already. I do believe that equality is very important. One clarification I will give, though, is I'm okay if your solution is not equal, right? If it's unequal, if it treats people differently. I just need a justification for it. So not all solutions are equal. So, for example, the educational inequality project is trying to offer kind of these catch-up courses or these catch-up educational environments for students who are falling behind. They're not offering them to students who are already like rock stars. That's not equal, but that's also the fair thing to do. So the only clarification, and that's a really good summary of how I kind of my perspective on ethical considerations, is that I look for strong justifications. I'll believe you in whatever side you take, but you need to prove it to me. And that's where kind of this argumentation, these skills of argumentation come into play. Okay, let's focus on one or two more of these. Hyun, let's look at the first one, clarity of problem analysis, ability to identify key components and analyze biases. Let's focus on the last part right over here, to analyze biases. How is your group going to make sure that you do this correctly? You know, because it's one thing to say like, oh, I made sure that I'm not biased, because I know that biases exist. That's step one. But how do you really make sure your team is doing a good job of analyzing biases?
Check each other. For example, we had some biases over other students that so
You got to keep going.
yeah, the professor told us we had some bias or kind of ethical issue in our so we had the feedback and tried to fix the biases.
Yeah, I think those are two really good points. Is checking the feedback that you've gotten. It's written out. It's very easy to access. And I think more important, stronger suggestion you had is checking your teammates. Check their biases. There's a few ways to do this. We learned about devil's advocate yesterday, which is just deliberately poking holes in the ideas that your teammates are bringing just to check, just to make sure they're really doing the right thinking, the right amount of thinking. They're doing a thorough job of it. So there's all sorts of these creative ways to really make sure. Asking five whys is another interesting way to get into biases. But at the end of the day, we're all biased. I think I'm very open about my biases in class, about what I like to see as an instructor. That despite like you'll get the grade based on the rubric, but after that, what I'm trying to push you towards, I'm biased in it, right? A different instructor might push you towards a heavier emphasis on algorithmic thinking. But you've noticed that I focus a lot about justification, argumentation, ethical considerations, and presentation, speaking. So let's talk about this final one, presentation quality. I want somebody to remind me from yesterday's session, what are some effective ways to have a good presentation? I'm going to open this question up to hands instead of cold calling, and I'll wait a few seconds. So what did we learn yesterday that can help in our presentation quality? All right, Seyan.
We can use rhetorical methods such as logos, pathos, and ethos in order to persuade others and persuade listeners.
Logos, pathos, and ethos. Exactly. When you're actually recording your presentation, you could read it word for word, your notes, your speech. That's you can do that, whatever is most comfortable for you. But I would highly, highly recommend and push you towards trying to use as many appeals as you can And if this is your first time presenting ever, use at least one. Use at least appeal to pathos. Try and get a bit emotional when you're presenting. These are, again, real world problems. When you're talking about mental illnesses like depression, impulsivity, these are things that affect real people. And you can make it sound important because they are important. So think about ways you can get your audience to feel the same way you feel, or think about your project as important. Yeah, that is my piece of advice on presentation quality. Let's get to something we haven't had in a few sessions. Presentation notes are gone. They're back. Okay, let's get to a preparation poll. What's the most significant gap in your project right now based on the checklist you used for pre-class work? So if you're confused about what the checklist is, there's this amazing. This is like your final gospel for truth, to make sure you've done what you need to do about your final presentation, your final assignment, is check off these boxes. It's asking you 10 main things. 1, about your problem statement. 2, your proposed solution. 3 is the ethical considerations. 4 is your flowchart. 5 is argumentation. 6 is clarity. 7 is engagement. 8 is collaboration. 9 is team dynamics. And the 10th is personal growth. So it's helped you break this big project down into, basically it's telling you what you're going to be checked on, what you're assessed on, what should be the focus of your project. And this final one is just very satisfying. Is it complete? I would recommend you make a copy of this, just so once you're done, you can click this and it's going to feel really nice. You're going to get a good dopamine rush when you click all of these boxes. So based on all of these like 10 criteria that I've pointed out, problem statement, proposed solution, etc., where do you think is the most like need for time and focus right now? Be entirely honest, of course, and if there's any like common trends and common themes, we can see if we want to talk about those. So let me pull up Prepo. As always, you're gonna have 600 characters, around 100 words, and 5 minutes to answer. All right. I'm gonna stop my screen sharing for just a moment. Hang tight. And let's make sure we press submit. I still see 2 unsubmitted. I'm gonna end the poll in 3, 2, 1. All right, let's see. Hmm. There's definitely common trends, common worries, a lot of emphasis on justification, on clarity, engagement. Okay, I like this. I like that we are starting to think about the audience essentially, and this is a common trend that I'm seeing in a lot of your responses. So we've had quite a bit of discussion on how to persuade and convince people. So if you have these tools appeal to pathos, appeal to ethos, um, appeal to logos, why is it important that you also know who your audience is? So who are you presenting towards? So obviously you're presenting to the class, to the instructor, but I want you to pretend as if you're presenting to your main stakeholder. It could be, for example, if you're tackling educational inequality, your pretend audience could be the Ministry of Education, somebody who might be able to do something. It could be investors. You can pick an audience in your head, make it up, but pick an audience. So Sangwoo, why is it important to pick a specific audience instead of just thinking about you're presenting to like a general world, general public?
It is important because we need to choose the level of the walls or and we need to know their backgrounds to convince effectively. So we can, if we know their backgrounds or their knowledge about these issues, we more effectively persuade them.
Fantastic response. Exactly what I was thinking is that you'll know if you should focus more on appeal to emotion or more on appeal to logic and use more evidence and credibility with ethos based on who your audience is. If your audience is somebody that relies more heavily on emotional appeal, that will be persuaded by emotional appeal, then maybe your presentation should have more of that. Um, Thank you for that. Let's get into our first set of breakouts, and these are going to be 20 minutes long. So we're going to be essentially, let me give you a quick teaser. You remember that checklist I pulled up? You're going to be basically seeing how you're doing. You're going to be focusing on using the checklist to evaluate, like basically check or score, like how are the different parts of your project doing so far. So focus especially on these 3 things: refining the problem statement, ensuring the flowchart is logically ordered and labeled. I think most of your flowcharts are in a really good place, so I would focus more on refining the problem statement and clarifying ethical considerations. And make sure you are going through these very deeply. These are 20-minute long breakouts. These are going to be a lot of time. I'm not sure if your groups are complete today and based on attendance. I just want to, when I open breakout rooms, let's see, actually, I do need to check this before, just based on attendance today. Let's see. I want to make sure if somebody knows that they're the only person in a group today, could you just raise your hand or write it in chat? Let me pull up the final assignment groups. Okay, Hyunmin, you're the only one. Chesan, you're the only one. All right. And the rest of you have at least some group partners. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Hyunmin and Chesan, you're going to get a really unique opportunity to have some cross-group feedback with each other, just the 2 of you in a breakout. And here's what you'll do specifically. You'll still have this note, and I want you to go turn by turn, asking each other, how is your problem statement so far? You can show each other, screen share, copy paste, and basically get as much feedback from each other as you possibly can in these 20 minutes. That's kind of the best way to check if these problems are, and I think this is really, you guys are going to have a very interesting, unique breakout because you're not in the same group, you're gonna be less biased. You're gonna have less kind of groupthink when it comes to answering these questions. Other groups need to seriously stop and really think deeply, like, are we sure we're not lying to ourselves? Is our problem actually clearly defined? But since you are in different groups, you'll have no issue seeing through each other's kind of biases. So fate would have it that we have an interesting breakout. And I would want at least one insight from your group in particular, Hyunmin and Cheson, to see just to see how this kind of cross-group feedback went. Okay, I'm gonna do what we usually do and open 4 breakout rooms. We're gonna have 20 minutes to do what we need to do. Oh, wait, before opening these, actually, let me paste in the links. Session 9, groups 1 to 4. Okay. Uh, Hyunmin, you're in group 2. So Cheson, you can join Hyunmin in group 2, room 2. All right, so you can use the second link. All right. And please just join your corresponding group. I know there's going to be an empty breakout document or 2. Options 20 minutes. And please remember to ask for help if you have any clarifying questions as well. I'll be dropping by to check in on progress, maybe halfway through. So let's see how it goes. All right. All right. And I think that's everybody assigned to the breakouts. Let's see how they're. Start screen sharing again. Okay. Let's see. We have okay, group 4 is the empty room, so we're only going to be using the first 3 breakouts. And Hyunmin, Cheson are in the second one. This should be an interesting one to see and debrief. All right. Welcome back, everyone. I hope those were a good 20 minutes. Getting you a head start on the final presentation, final assignment checklist. Let's go group by group for a second. Minwoo, could you just for a brief minute talk about what your problem definition was and what did your group discuss?
Our problem addressing is personal information leakage in the digital era. And our solution is to make it duty that companies open data processing to the public and make independent algorithms operating in individual devices. The key ethical considerations with that was we worried that an independent algorithm could reinforce the biases which the public already have because they only show contents that accord with existing beliefs. And we should think about how we could avoid these problems.
All right. Just based on this limited information to the rest of the class, my question is there any piece of advice you can give this group about this question? How could we avoid these problems? Let's see. I'll wait for a few seconds to see if there's any volunteers, and then I'll call on someone. All right, Chesan, could you take a shot at answering this question for this group? How could we avoid these problems of reinforcing biases?
I think the company or people shouldn't like rely totally on algorithms and this data processing because like digital isn't always the perfect solution and it sometimes makes errors and there are some problems such as hacking and like abusing the information. So I would say not relying on those and always making a certain team of people to always check on those information.
I think that's a wonderful addition. This is kind of common practice when it comes to these sensitive artificial intelligence systems or big data companies where you need a human being at the final step. This is used in so many applications of artificial intelligence, including warfare, where if you have artificial intelligence flying a drone, it needs to be a human being that presses the final button. If in the examples we've talked about before about that AI system that was racially profiling people, one of the solutions was to have a human being at the final check. So I think that's a fantastic piece of advice. Let's skip group two for a second and jump to group three. And from group three, Wonjun, could you, same question, could you just talk about what your problem is and what did you discuss in breakouts?
The problem we are addressing is the educational inequality of high school students in Korea, caused by various reasons like wealth level, living regions, or school environments. We are proposed to each public education academies like installing EBS branches and activate mentoring program or mock special classes. The key ethical consideration or benefit sense respect of autonomy, sustainability, and granting the right to education.
Okay. And as a quick follow-up, what is kind of like the big question that your team is trying to answer right now? You know how group one has this kind of this worry, this concern about avoiding these problems, about biases. What's the what's it for your group? What's one of the questions you're confused about?
Oh, I can't understand your question.
So, is there any place in your final assignment that you see a gap, like you need to put in more work? We can open this up to actually the rest of the group as well. So, group three, Hyun, Seohyun, is there any like question or confusion that you can write it in chat? This is kind of a good opportunity to get a different student's perspective on it. All right. I'll wait for a few seconds to see if something pops up in chat. We can take a crack at it. In the meantime, I do like kind of this group's focus on um, answering these questions about who the audience is. It seems like you selected Minister of Education. It's definitely a really strong, useful audience to pick because it'll give you a lot of tips on how to present to the Minister of Education. Um, Also good explanations of what appeals you're most likely to use. Okay, how might we fill the educational gaps between students more effectively? So I think this is like your problem definition, and it might be good to get someone from another group to see if they can offer a solution, like just a really quick solution to this question. The problem is that students aren't at the same level of education. Um, so any kind of solution to that. For this question, someone from group one or two. Sangwoo, how about you give it a shot? What do you recommend?
To question the science.
Yes, so this question that Seo-hyun put in chat, how might we fill the educational gaps between students?
We could establish an extra education program in Hanyang University. The professors establishes Spark English program who struggling in learn English or speaking English. So we would like to establish some extra programs and limit limit have a limit on students' level and assess their ability to give more opportunities to learn more about and improve their ability.
You know why this answer makes me really happy is because the solution you've offered is kind of what this group is trying to do. But what you've said is giving them this advice that maybe you should be looking at some real world examples of where people have tried to do this before. So using analogies. So you've brought up the example of Hanyang University and how it has these programs to help students catch up and that they're successful. So for group three, bringing up real world examples of when initiatives like your solution have worked in the past. That's fantastic evidence. And now let's get to our mixed group, group two. So why don't we go turn by turn? We can go to Hyunmin first. And Hyunmin, tell us the feedback that you got, and then you can pass it straight off to Cheson. And Cheson, you can then tell us the feedback that you got. You don't need to wait for me to call on you, Cheson. You can go right after Hyunmin. Go ahead.
Okay, so our group two got some advice from Jason about our flow chart that we already wrote in yesterday. Our flow chart is about yes, 6 to 8 teacher. Yes. We classifies our patients who have mental disorders in modern time because we have four solutions, so we have to match them into a proper solution. And we make step 6, 4, 7, 8 to make the proper effect for each of the group. And Jason's advice is about we should make a system or the picture that we can just find the structure about it, or the audience can easily find the separating system of the group of the patients so they can more easily understand about it. So we accept it and we are going to planning to make a structure or something else that can shows the system more easily.
Um, I've gotten advice about the overall problem and solution and like what attitude we should have as a group trying to solve um this big problem. We got the advice of that since the subject itself is a regulation of false information and biased, harmful information online, it is important to maintain trying to maintain neutrality and objectivity when we are trying to find some solutions and we are trying to regulate those informations and managing the system. Also, it is important that all team members do not fall into a biased perspective while we are working on this project. So, Hyunmin gave gave me an advice that as a group, our group needs like a system that regularly checks each other to like not fall into those biased systems and trying to keep on this unbiased thoughts throughout the project.
This is not just instructor level feedback. This is also feedback that I probably might not have been able to think of myself. It's so incredibly useful to be able to get this cross group feedback. And I think you both gave each other really wonderful advice. And I agree with the advice you've given 100%. I've mentioned some of the, when you were giving your feedbacks, reminding us about your feedbacks, I was thinking like, yeah, I had these kind of same thoughts when I was looking at these projects. And I'm really glad you're able to see that. Really well done across all three of the groups today. We are going to now jump into our big breakout. So, real quick update. It turns out that Google Meet requires premium subscription for recording, and I'm not 100% if that is available to you. So there have been updated instructions. You're going to have access to them. I'll send a link as well after breakouts, or I'll just jump into breakouts and I'll send you a link. But there's basically all you need to know is there's different ways to record, like Zoom or Loom. Zoom is a really good option to record. So that's the only small caveat. Right now, for the next, let's say next 35 minutes, you're just going to be in breakouts. You're going to be working on your presentation. And in the last, let's say, 10 minutes of the breakouts, I'm gonna stop by and I'm gonna ask some people to present their part just in the breakouts, just to see how they're doing. So it's gonna be like a small rehearsal. So make sure you're done with some parts at least. Kyunmin, Cheson, you're still gonna be in the same breakouts. You can be individually working on your own presentations, but I would highly recommend that you're at least unmuted or sitting next to each other so that you're asking each other actively for feedback. Like, hey, what should I do about this part? Do you think this is a good idea? Really a great opportunity to get more insight from a peer. Okay, let's get those links in chat. First three groups only, now that we know. And hold on, just to give you, where to go? Just to give you a quick preview, right? This is what your breakouts are looking like. this is it. You're meant to be using the next 35 minutes for this, working on your final presentation. Okay. There you go. All right. So they are now going to be working in their Google slide templates, which they have access to. I'm going to be checking in the last 10 minutes to see how they're doing, maybe get a few rehearsals in. we're actually going to be able to see what they're up to. All right, welcome back, everyone. Um, long breakouts. More than half of class in breakouts, actually. I'm hoping it gives you a chance to basically, it's like mandatory time to sit down and work on the project. It's really good. Gets you out of that kind of, if you're in a stuck place. I want to jump straight into the reflection poll, and then I'm gonna talk briefly about the collaboratory that you're going to be submitting tonight. So let's get this poll launched, and you'll have 5 minutes. All right, let's make sure we have our poll submitted. I'm going to end it. Yeah, we're all submitted. All right, fantastic. Just a really quick response. Tell me what learning target you picked. Don't tell me why, just what learning target you picked. Minwoo.
Only what I chose?
Yes.
Oh, I chose algorithmic thinking.
All right, algorithmic thinking. Hyo-hyun Lee, what did you pick?
I pick critical thinking.
Critical thinking. Jong-hyuk, what did you pick?
I pick critical thinking.
All right, Wonjun.
I pick critical thinking.
All right, fantastic. We're going to have a bunch of diversity. We're going to have different things we want to focus on. But I think the big challenge that you've all just realized over the last 35 minutes in breakouts is that it will be a challenge to condense your very beautiful presentations into 5 minutes. I think that's the next challenge. That's what you're going to be doing for the rest of today in your collaboratory. You only have to submit the recording. Only the recording. 5 minutes. So let's go through this. You're first going to be tasked to refine the slides. So far the progress is looking good. We're working a lot on content. Refining it also means making them visually appealing. So making sure they all look fine. And writing, making sure it aligns with the script. The script is what you're actually saying, because you can't be reading off everything that's on your slides, because that would take 15, 20, 25 minutes based on all of the content that is there. So make sure you also then finalize the script, rehearse this part around 1 minute per student, depends on how big your group is. And then you're just going to be recording. And that's going to be the rest of your afternoon essentially until you get the recording that you're happy with, the one that you want. There is this link. I also put it in chat, by the way, recording your submission with more instructions to record using Zoom or using Loom if you can't get Google Meets to cooperate with you. And yeah, that's it. This is the big one. This is day 9, one more final push, and we're going to be heading into day 10. The final collaboratory will be a really thorough peer review, much more thorough than what Hyunmin and Chisan you were able to do in breakouts today. So don't worry about it. The only thing you need to worry about right now is what is due today, which is your final presentation. Really, really best of luck. I'm going to be in office hours in my usual times. I'll be there to give you feedback if you need help, like you can't figure out how to say something, you can't figure out how to make a giant presentation into like 5 minutes. I'll be there to help you out as much as I can in that time. Okay, as always, I'm going to stick around if you have questions, and if not, you're all good to go. Thank you for today. See ya.
Bye.
Bye. All right, fantastic.